And basically want to talk about some opportunities that a lot of artists are missing out there.
One key one that just hit me so obvious. I got to do this trick before everyone else finds out about it.
This is They're Good at That Shit, a podcast for musicians, basically designed to help other musicians level up. My guest today, we're doing something a little different. He is a producer and engineer in his own right, but he also helps me put together this podcast. Dave Marx.
What's up, Broadway?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Very good. Good to be in front of the camera this week, this episode. So it's nice. I'm excited to talk about, all the episodes we've done together.
Yeah, man. So you basically had a front row seat to all the episodes because you've been helping me put it together.
Yes.
Since episode 5, I believe, was when I brought you on, something like that. And so you told me a story, and I thought it was really interesting and really dope. So I wanted to bring you on to talk about that and some other things, and basically want to talk about some opportunities that a lot of artists are missing out there. So, which was something I felt was a key theme through a lot of the things that you were telling me about that you picked up from the podcast. So we're going to talk about a lot of key opportunities a lot of artists might be missing. So first of all, like I said, you told me a really interesting story that kind of made me want to bring you on and talk about it. So tell us that story.
Well, one of my favorite stories from being the editor so far is it was Grammy week in LA. So this past February, I was editing the Josh Moreland episode. Mm-hmm. Josh Moreland's an amazing artist, so much charisma, and he was telling so many stories about how he networks, navigates LA, gets so many opportunities. And this one key one that just hit me so obvious, because I've been to a lot of these events and no one does it, at say a musician networking event, right, where everyone's there, they're having drinks, they're talking, maybe there's loud music playing. Mm-hmm. Everyone says, "Oh, I'd love to hear your music. Let's work together sometime." And what he does is he brings his own Bluetooth headphones. Mm-hmm. And when someone says that, he's like, "Oh, well, I have my headphones right here if you want to hear some of it." And I just thought that made so much sense. Like, it's, smart but not pushy. Mm-hmm. It just shows you were prepared and confident. And so it was Grammy week, and I hadn't gone out to any events. I was kind of like, I don't know. I've gone to them for a few years. It's always kind of same stuff. But watching that motivated me. I said, all right, I'm going to sign up for this event, and I'm actually going to bring my headphones and play some of the new music. So one of my main music partners, Blue, he came with me. We went to this event. We're meeting people, this and that. I'm actually playing some different people, some music on my headphones. And while I'm doing it, who do I run into but Josh Moreland himself was at that event.
Nice.
And so I went up, I introduced myself to him. I said, "You're not going to believe this. I edit this podcast. It's called They're Good at That Shit. I'm working on your episode right now. Like, before I came here, I was doing your episode." Uh-huh. And look, and I pull out my headphones. He goes, "No." He died laughing. He totally dabbed me up. He was like, "That's amazing." Yeah. And he's like, "Actually, my headphones are broken right now. I don't even have mine. I need to get a new pair." Oh. So that was just so awesome. Like, I put it into practice that day. And, and in some ways, I know we don't have millions of viewers on this podcast, but I was almost like, I got to do this trick before everyone else finds out about it. Like before we publish the episode. Yeah. So that was awesome. I played my music for a lot of people, but actually what that turned into was even a better opportunity for my partner, Baloo, who I came with. He was using the headphones too and playing his music for some people. Yeah. And literally from a connection made at that event, he performed at Rolling Loud just 1 month later because they liked his music, met him then, followed up, and he got that opportunity just from bringing the headphones.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my favorite one.
That is incredible, man. I love to hear that. First of all, that he got that opportunity from something that you picked up on the podcast. So that is incredible. Like, you really honestly never know what can lead to what. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, on the topic of missed opportunities, I think a big theme that I see from the podcast is that it's always one opportunity leads to another. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, and I had this shot and I didn't take it and now it's over. It's like, it was this little thing that I thought was going to be nothing. My session was actually canceled. And so I went down and met this friend, and then that turned out into this. So it's like, for each opportunity you miss, you might actually miss 10,
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, that is huge, because I definitely feel that myself, in terms of, there's been so many times where I just show up to some event, some music thing, whether I'm just supporting some other friend I know that has a show, or I'm just happen to be going to something, and then somebody is like, "Oh, Broadway, you want to play the thing I got next week, or you want to play? And like, there's been so many times like that where just showing up to one thing leads to another thing, or playing at this thing leads to this other thing, which leads to this other thing. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't understand, because I even hear and see people kind of shit on certain events, or like you know what I mean? Like, maybe this is too small, or this is this or that, you know what I mean? But it's like that thing could lead to this other thing that you want, you know what I mean?
Just to even follow up on the Josh Moreland story with my friend Baloo, when I told Baloo, he goes, I don't love going to those, but since you don't step out a lot and you want to go, I'm down. And that's what turned into one of the biggest opportunities for him in the past year, you know? So
wow.
It's you just never know, and you have to step out there, you have to be involved. Everyone who is on the podcast who is succeeding is doing that so much. And I think that's where you've met a lot of them too. And that's how they even got on the podcast. That's how you met them. All these shows, you're out most nights a week in Hollywood, hosting shows, playing shows, meeting musicians. It's the only way to do it. We're all here in LA. You got to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, definitely got to take advantage of while we're here. Right. What else? So what else have you kind of picked up from?
I mean, so I work with a lot of independent growing artists, right? Which is, I would say in many ways, the target audience of this podcast. So it feels like every episode there's new things I'm learning that can apply to the artists I'm working with. Sometimes it's like so right on, fortuitous, the exact thing we're talking about. A recent one was the CA in LA episode where they're the Twitch musicians. They succeed well on Twitch. And their story is amazing because they had played a lot of music before, but they had never been like putting out their own albums. They had never been doing that. They were really filmmakers, but during the pandemic, they started on Twitch. And what I learned from them that I thought was really important to apply to all my artists, and even specifically one of them who was saying, I want to start streaming on Twitch, was that they talked about how when you go on Twitch, you got to really embed yourself in the Twitch community, not expect people who follow you on Instagram are going to be like, oh, I've never watched a Twitch stream before, but Broadway's on Twitch, so now I'm going to go over. And I thought, I hadn't thought about it like that. It's like, oh no, promote it on Instagram, promote it on TikTok. You have 10,000 followers there, you have 10,000 followers there. But those people like to be on Instagram and TikTok. There's millions of people on Twitch that like to watch streamers on Twitch all day. You should try to find them, try to find and build your audience where they're at on Twitch. So like even that, we could have been doing 6 months a year with the wrong strategy for the streaming, but just via watching this episode, not a missed opportunity. Let's dive into Twitch for real in the Twitch community. So that was that was another one. And I mean, there's many, about playing shows. This is one I think we've talked about so many times. Like if an artist is trying to be booked for a showcase, making sure they're submitting videos and content material that show they know how to play well in the environment. Also touching back to what we said about networking, almost everyone you talk to on this show who hosts showcases say they don't like being reached out to someone who doesn't seem to know the vibe of the show, or has never even been there, doesn't even know what it's about. Like these are simple basics, but like you could either become a weekly guest there by going out one time, being nice, being part of the community, meeting some people, or you could like kill that connection forever and almost, never be that welcome at that showcase just by kind of making it about yourself, not going, say, what's my set time? It's my first time, this or that, like any of that nonsense. And so, I mean, the tips, I could go on and on about some of the specific tacticals, but a lot of the themes I think are, kind of about the networking, about the being genuine, doing things for the right reason, and the kind of meeting the community where they're at to build your fan base. Not saying everyone come over here and listen to my music.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, definitely. I think that is an opportunity that people are missing, is just not being a part of a community before. It's just like there's so many people like that hit me up like, hey, want to play Monday? Hey, you want to play Writers Round? Hey, can I play this? And it's like they've never been to either thing. They don't, it's like they're not participating. They don't know the vibe, and they'll ask you questions that make it obvious they don't even know what it is or what day of the week it is or when, you know what I mean? And it's like,
what day is Monday, Broadway?
Yeah. You'd be surprised. No, but no, I get a lot of questions about playing these different things, and again, it's like, I get it. We're all trying to get in where we fit in and do our thing, but also it can go a long way. Even just showing up one time before you ask to play something, show up one time, meet the curator, meet the host, say, hey, my name is Broadway. I love what you're doing here. And if you did, if you genuinely enjoyed like the vibe and then say that. Yeah, like, yo, what's up? It's Broadway. I genuinely dig what you're doing here. I'm an artist too, and and it can go from there.
Yeah. One episode I thought the guest had a ton of really good examples of how to do that strategically, but not
in like in a pushy way.
Not in a pushy way. Was Lisa Crawley. She had a lot of stories about, okay, I want to start being the pianist at this venue. I started hanging out there. I met the bartenders. I met the person booking the show. I became friends with the pianist. Then when the pianist couldn't make it one week, guess who they were thinking of as the replacement? Me. She made that happen, but it wasn't like, hey, can I play next week? Hey, when are you off? This or that. She liked the vibe. She wanted to be there. She was there. She met everyone. And who was the first person top of their mind when they needed a replacement? But was her, Lisa. And so I also think it's a missed opportunity to not sometimes just go to these music events just to enjoy them.
Yes.
Us as musicians, artists, engineers, producers, the inspiration can run dry. And if you're framing it of, I need to work, I need to do my music, I don't have time to go to a show, I think you got to reframe what you see as music work, because this, again, many people have talked about the CA in LA episode, the way they talked about going out and getting inspiration. Their plants, they need sunlight, they need air, they need water, they go to museums, they have some rules for themselves as a team. I think they said that they have to visit at least one museum a month, they have to do at least one nature thing a month, some things like this, which almost everyone who's been successful, that seems to be a little more their mantra. No one here is talking about, from 4 a.m. until 10 p.m. I'm out there grinding, I'm in the studio, I'm sleeping in the booth, I'm doing, everyone that's successful talks about managing their wellness while on tour, managing, their spirit while trying to be honest and vulnerable as an artist. So I think sometimes you got to just enjoy it. We're in LA. There's tons of great musicians. There's tons of great places to go. Sometimes you can go at that event and not meet anyone. Just enjoy and listen to the music as a viewer that night. So I think that's another one people can learn from.
That is huge. And I definitely personally have kind of adopted that myself in terms of just going out and just, enjoying the vibe, enjoying the artists that I'm hearing. There's a lot of really talented musicians out here. And there are people that I find, on my playlist, to add to my playlist, that I genuinely enjoy listening to when I'm in the car, but I've heard them at Monday or at Writers Round, or somebody asked me today, actually, my manager at my day job asked me, so what do you listen to these days? And I'm like, mostly it's a lot of people on the, in the local LA scene that I really vibe with. And she's like, oh, send me some recs, send me some people. So I'm going to send her a lot of the people in the scene, and I think that's really cool, just to know people, and just from being out and to have those connections, and then I can pass that on to other people. I think it's cool. But yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head, man. It's just like, sometimes it's just going out, enjoying the vibe, meeting people that may be, some connection down the road. It may turn into some collaboration down the road, maybe even not even that day or immediately. Just being at Writers Round, for example, and things like that, people that play in a band with me when I do full band shows, or when I play shows at Monday, and I have background singers or people playing with me. These are people that I've met at these things. Like, some of the songs that I've done, like Freeway with Tori Leopard, I met her at Writers Round, so like all these collaborations happen from a lot of times just me being out and just hanging out.
It's so much more natural and organic, and I think it will really influence how you feel about your experience in LA and in the music business. Like, some people are like, I tried to find a backup singer for my show and no one wanted to do it. Whereas you go to the show, these people already like to sing there and hang out there. You want to sing on my song in a couple of weeks, they'll come. It's not like, oh, it's in Hollywood, I live on the west side, like any of this. I don't know what it is. Is parking going to be hard? Are there going to be a lot of people there? Like, all that nonsense is just gone. It makes me, so something we don't get a chance to talk about a ton on this podcast is you're an independent musician yourself. Yeah. You've been doing it for a large number of years. You have a lot of experience. You've played a lot of shows, put out a lot of songs. Are there specific things you've learned from the podcast that created an opportunity for you?
Yeah, I think, one thing I've learned a lot from Maddie Fraser, for one, because I've actually been taking vocal lessons with her.
Yep.
so, you know, she provided a lot of tips here on the podcast about, you know, how you should be singing and things like that. And so, but I'm still learning. It's a process. So, but I feel myself improving, and I think just in general, I think just the mindset of just continuing to try to level up, you know, just like continuing to work on myself. One of my things lately has just been, you know, control what you can control, you know, and I think even just like hosting the podcast has just like put me in a different mindset of like, okay, I can't control, you know, how many people applaud for me when I play a song at Monday, but I can control how much I put into preparing for that show, you know? And so like, I think as a host, it makes me a little more, I'm also more in tune to like, I tune in a lot to other podcasters, even podcasters in like business and finance and things like that. And I get like what it is that they're doing to be successful and why it is that they're successful. So I think just having a podcast has just kind of put me in a different space, and I'm consuming other podcasts in a different way and kind of soaking things up in a different way, if that makes sense.
Me too. You know? No, I feel you on that. Music has always been my favorite thing, and one of the hardest things about starting to do music full-time as a job is how it changes the listening to music experience. You're always like breaking it down and analyzing. My other favorite thing to do in my free time is listen to podcasts and doing this together. I'm like always, I'm like, how much is one person talking versus the other? I'm like, did they do an edit there, or is that just natural? You know, like all these, I'm just like listening to it so much more technical and different.
Yeah.
I mean, what you said about the constant improvement, I really got to give you your flowers for here on the air, because I admire you for that. I see you just putting in the work on each and everything you do, and you're already quite good at all of them, but your mindset is more of a growth mindset, a learn from experts mindset, a learn from each other and collaborate mindset. Even on the podcast, and the edits, like, I don't know, we've been working together maybe 6, 7, 8 months. I don't think there's ever an idea I've brought up or a thing where you'd be like, nah. You know, or anything like that, you know, even if we don't end up doing it, you're real. It's that growth mindset. It's so evident. And I think the results end up showing. One thing we've never talked about is, why did you start this podcast in the first place?
Well, I think you kind of hit on it there, like kind of helping other musicians, you know, because I think, I mean, number one, I've learned a lot myself. You know, you know, having these people that are doing, you know, big things. I was thinking about this today, and I'm big on metaphors and like analogies and things like that. And I feel like, you know, the singer-songwriter scene is like this vast ocean where, you know, some people are drowning, they're flailing, like the waves are coming, they're hitting, you know, and they're like, it's a struggle, because when the waves come, it's hard, you know. And then other people, they're kind of treading water, you know, maybe figuring some things out. Other people may have a small kayak or a life raft, or, you know, something like that. And so I think it's, I see these people that have, okay, this person, okay, they have an oar. Like, how did they get this oar? Like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and so then maybe the person that's in the water, they can see that and be like, oh, okay, I see how they got in the boat. Okay, then I see how they got the oar. Okay, cool. Oh, this person over here, they got a life jacket. How did they get the life jacket? I might need this life jacket for later. How did they? So it's just like, I see these things, and I understand that we can all learn something from each other. But I think sometimes we're flailing in the water, right? But we don't want to ask the dude in the raft right here, you know, because we're embarrassed, or we don't want to, whatever. We don't want to bother them, or whatever. So I feel like in the podcast setting, it's more accepted. We're like, hey, how did you do that? And how, you know, and then other people who may be embarrassed to ask the guy, they can listen to the podcast and say, oh, okay, that's how they did that. That's how, and there's you know, so many people that are doing cool things that are doing really dope things, and you wouldn't even necessarily know it. You know, it's the guy that's just at the open mic next to you, you know, that's worked with, you know, some huge artist, or the guy that's producing the artist that's next to you at the open mic, you know, has worked with, you know, Dave Matthews. And so, you know, so it's like, it's, you know, I just see that. And I think there's a lot of knowledge to be gleaned, I guess, from a lot of the different people that, you know, I run into on a daily basis. So it's just a matter of kind of spreading that information around so we can all learn from it, you know?
Yeah, those are two things I love about the podcast. I would say one, that it really highlights, still in a positive and encouraging way, the reality of being an artist. The way you said, this got an oar, got a life jacket, got this. There's so many aspects to it. There's so many things you got to do, and it's not just, you know, jumping in the water and hoping a yacht's going to pick you up kind of vibe. And then the second is that I think the podcast does a really good job of highlighting non-household names that are still making a full-time living with their music or art or career, this or that. Like, you know, for every star you see up there, there's 5 guys doing the lights and 10 people doing the, you know, stage, and then 15 band and backup dancers and the person doing the sound and like all that. And I think a lot of people wanting to get into music, they think either, okay, I'm going to be Drake or I'm going to be nothing. And there's just millions of roles and spaces in between that. For each artist you know of, there's 10, 100, or hundreds of people supporting them also doing their art. So I think that's a really good thing this podcast highlights. You'll see someone whose name you don't recognize, but then you'll recognize a million different things they say they've worked on, and have probably a lot more to learn from that person's career and journey than a Drake or an Ed Sheeran, you know, something like this. So I think those are two things that are awesome about this podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, no, that's it, man. Because I it's like you said, you know, Drake is where he is, and, you know, we're definitely a lot more likely to be able to learn from the people who are, you know, a few steps ahead of us. You
Precisely.
know, like, you know, you see them right there in the life raft, and you're like, they can reach out and help you, you know, if you only, you know, kind of found out what they're doing. And a lot of these people they're cool people, you know, everybody that having a podcast, they're cool people, like, you know, so, you know, that I know, you know, they don't mind, you know, sharing the knowledge too. So, you know, I think that's cool. And another thing you said that I thought was interesting is that it does feel like, or I know a lot of people do think that they're going to be drowned in the water. A helicopter's going to pick them up and take them to the island, shore. Yeah, to the shore, to the mansion on the shore, on the highest mountain,
and then everyone be like, "Yeah!"
on the yeah, like that's what it feels like. But no, it's like, okay, you have to figure out how to tread water. Like, okay, now I had to figure out, okay, now I see some like branches floating. Let me put a little raft together. Okay, now I got that. Let me make an oar out of the, and it just goes from there. And eventually you can get to the shore, but it's all those, you know, incremental steps that like we don't think about. And so I definitely don't want to pretend like that's not the way it is, you know, because it is. But it takes hard work. But I also want people to see that it is possible and it is doable. And there are people that are, you know, making a living, and, you know, like we're talking about CA in LA, through Twitch streaming. They're funding a lot of their film projects, and they're doing this and making, you know, and traveling through money they've raised on Twitter. And it's, you know, and I had no idea that even was a thing until I met them, you know. And so these opportunities are out there, and, you know, a lot of artists don't even know about it. So that's what I kind of feel like my job is as hosting this podcast, is kind of bringing some of those things to light and saying, hey, this is, you know, an opportunity, and this is possible if you just, you know, work it.
Yeah. I mean, just off the top of my head, like, of the guests, some ways they've made their full-time living is sound engineering, being a producer, some people vocal lessons and or background singers on tours with major artists, event curator and booker type, you know, filmmaker. Sync supervisor, yeah, right, and or getting their songs placed in sync. Like, all of these are things that when you're just starting out, like I wouldn't even expect or even know about. Like it's like unless my album goes platinum,
right,
I'm nothing. You know, is I think the way a lot of people think about the art. And something I also notice a lot of independent artists that are getting started think about the wrong way, which I think we do a good job of combating, is I notice a lot of people think they have to do everything themselves for it to count. You know, they, but I wrote it and I produced it and I recorded it at home and I mixed it and I mastered it and I did the cover art and I made the video and, you know, like, and I'm like, that's cool, but that you don't get extra points for doing it all yourself. Right. And I bet the result's going to be worse doing it all yourself. And I'm not saying you can't do each part of this, or at some point you won't be able to do it all for one project, but you know, maybe if you produced it, sang it, and recorded it, you could have someone else mix it, you know, and things like this. And that doesn't make it less your song. That doesn't make you less of a indie artist, and that doesn't make you any less than. The collaboration is better, and I think people who are actually rising to the top and moving forward in their careers realize that the collaboration is key. So.
Yeah. You hit on something like really, really important. I mentioned earlier that I've started listening to these really successful businessmen too. Like, I don't know if you know who Alex Hormozy is, for example, but yeah, he's almost a billionaire. He might be a billionaire at this point, but he's made a lot of money. But one thing he talks about is leverage, and leverage is huge in terms of success. And there's a couple different ways that you can utilize leverage. One of them being is learning from people who have done the thing. And so that's part of the point of this podcast, is that we can all learn from the people who have done the thing and save ourselves time and headache, because they know about the thing, because they've made a lot of mistakes in the thing. That's you know, and so, you know, CA in LA, they didn't just wake up and now we're successful Twitch streamers. Like I'm sure they had to, you know, test and iterate and make a lot of mistakes and try this, try that. And so, and now they're passing along some of the game. And so we can take that and avoid some of the time that it took them to figure certain things out.
And a huge thing they talked about on their episode was how much the Twitch community embraced them. The other Twitch music streamers really helped them and helped them with gear lists, and they were very transparent with, this is what you're going to need to succeed, and doing things like that. So, like, no one who's succeeding at the top is being scared of asking for help or learning from someone ahead of them. That's the attitude that's going to get them to the top. I think a lot of the interviews have shown that.
Yeah. And another thing you mentioned that also falls in the leverage category is working with other people, because, you know, you're stronger together. You can get more accomplished, you know, working with others. And I used to produce a lot of my own songs, and I kind of realized this is not really my strength, you know, so why not, you know, go to my guy Roberto Horns, who was also on the podcast, or my guy Tom, who are phenomenal producers, or Kofi. They're all amazing producers. Why not go to some of them and have the song produced, and then I can focus on the writing, the thing that I feel like I'm good at. You know, and so I feel like if you could, the more you can focus in and hone in on what it is you're good at, the better at it you get, and the more you can kind of catapult in that arena, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, trying to do too much can be a missed opportunity. You know, we even talk 100%. About with our podcast growth strategy, you say, let's not chase too many rabbits, right? Like if you try to chase 2 rabbits at once, you're going to catch none. It's got to be picking the lane we're trying to grow in, focusing on that. And, you know, it can be a missed opportunity to do 50 different things. It could be a missed opportunity to mix your own record. You could have met the mix engineer that got you the sound that you imagined, you know, the whole time, and really takes your records to the next level. But if you're just doing it all in your bedroom and, you know, trying to put the ego first and then, you know, not collaborating at all, it's never going to give you back what you're hoping for. It's just not going to happen. And,
you know, one thing I do want to talk about since we're here is that I do understand that, you know, things add up in terms of money, and, you know, this costs money and that costs money. And I get that 100%. But I also think that, you know, it's an investment in yourself, you know, and I think it's just figuring out, okay, what do I need? What do I not need? Are there things that, if I'm getting Starbucks every day, maybe I don't do that, and then I can get the song mixed properly. Things like that.
This is my favorite. This is truly like my favorite thing to talk about with independent artists, because I could go on forever. Okay, so it's going to take you more than $0.
Right.
Okay, that's what I like to tell everyone. You're not going to get there spending no money. It's just not going to happen. Right. Even if you already have the laptop and the mic, that's money too. You know what I mean? So it's like you're just, there's no circumstances in which you're getting there for $0. But on the other hand, this is something just I've learned more through my indie music career and helping other artists. The prices you can get can vary greatly. Okay. And similar to the way we're talking about, if you want to get booked at the show, maybe show up and meet them first, maybe know what it's about. Similarly, say you need a song mixed and you're trying to find an engineer. Okay. Well, if you reach out to a random engineer who you've never talked to before, who is mixing the biggest records on the radio, and you say, I'm the next Michael Jackson and I want you to mix my next record. A, they're going to give you a very high price. B, they're going to be like, okay, well, do you have you recorded it? Can you send it over? This or that. Whereas if you say maybe find someone who just mixed a song that you like for a random artist, not necessarily the biggest top person, you find out who mixed that, you record your song and you reach out to them and say, hey, I found you because you mixed this song and I really like the sound. I've recorded this demo and I'm looking for a mix engineer. Could you give me a quote on the price to mix this song? Maybe you could also show your stuff by saying, also, do you have a recommended mastering engineer you work with, or do you like to master too? If me as an engineer, I read that quote, I say, oh, this person knows what they're doing. They're going to be easy to work with. They're going to be professional. And I give them a reasonable quote, where if someone is totally new, you kind of got to build in that you're going to have to handhold them. They might have very unreasonable expectations and not really even understand what mixing a record does or things like this. So I think, that lesson that we talked about from the How to Get Shows should really be applied to your whole music career. And you should be willing to spend a little money and invest where you need. But also, it's not just throwing money at the problem. It's understanding, meeting, finding the right person, and, sometimes paying them for their time and expertise, because maybe the $500 you'll pay them to mix the song will save you 6 months and mixing a bad record, and then it's worth it for both people.
Yeah. I always felt like music is one of those things where it does need to sound a certain level of quality, if you're serious about it. I feel like you want to have a certain sound, a certain quality level of sound. And there are people out there that can give you that sound for an affordable price.
Precisely.
But it's just sometimes, like you said, it's a matter of finding that person. And sometimes it's a matter of going to and a lot of times these people hang out at the open mics, or they hang out at the shows and at this place and that place, and or the people that hang out there know those people that mix, so it's just a matter of meeting people, finding the person that is going to be the best kind of mix of quality and price for you.
Absolutely. Like, if you need a new HVAC system in your apartment, are you going to learn how to install HVAC, or are you going to go and get some quotes, see who seems to be a good match at the right price you can afford, and then hire them to help you, you know? So I think it's the same thing. Yeah, absolutely, man. What are any other things that you wanted to ask me, or? Well, a few things, but on the topic of guests, I wanted to talk. Do you have any dream guests for this podcast? I would like to talk to somebody like a Chapel Roan, for example, because I specifically remember seeing video of her. It's just her playing keys in a park for like 25 people, and I would love to hear, her journey from that girl to where she is now, and kind of everything that happened in between. And and I think just coming at it from the perspective of an artist, and kind of just hearing her knowledge on what she did each step of the way, I feel like would be super valuable. Somebody like that I would love to talk to. Yeah, I think there's a lot more artist with a journey similar to her story now, even though she's now blown up and gotten, out the stratosphere. But a lot of the artists who are making it now have been grinding in silence behind the scenes. You never heard of them for 10 or more years already. You know, most of them have already had a big opportunity that didn't work out and came down. And the reason they're there, you got to keep working. It's harder than ever. These labels, there's not a lot of anyone developing artists. So you have to develop yourself. And I think one of the only ways you can do it is YouTube, collaborating, watching podcasts like ours, things like this, getting out to networking events, playing showcases, putting out albums online, finishing projects, making your own music video, trying the Facebook ads or the promo or the try to go viral things. This is it. This is the real work it takes. And I think our podcast does a really great job of, in a still encouraging way, showing behind the scenes, showing what it's actually going to take to get there.
You said one thing I want to touch on: finishing projects. I think that is like, I wanted to make sure to not just sweep over that, because it sounds simple, but I feel like there's so many people that have started the project and they stay in this cycle of the editing cycle, just constantly like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. Like, at some point, you have to just put the fucking thing out.
Broadway, if starting songs was the job, I'd already be a millionaire. It's the job is finishing them and publishing them and putting them in front of an audience. And while it is very much so about enjoying the process and getting there, if you're trying to grow, and particularly grow an audience and create opportunities for yourself as an artist, and if you're at all looking to do this as a money-making career, the publishing and an audience receiving it part is half or more of the artistic process, because I think you're almost guaranteed going to have that experience that I think we've all had of, it's your Mona Lisa, you've been working on it for a year, you upload it, and everyone's like, all right, it's cool. Like, I like that third song, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's it.
They're not going to be like, oh, it sucks. I can't believe your snare sound wasn't compressed. No one's ever going to say that, and no one's ever going to be like, yo, this is the new Signed, Sealed, Delivered. It's always going to be like underwhelming. I think probably even the biggest artists are probably underwhelmed because, it's your favorite song, but most people they meet, I'm sure, are like, oh, I don't like most of your music. Even if you have 1 billion fans, there's 7 billion people who are not fans of you. You know what I mean? True. So it's no matter what level you're at, some people are going to receive it and it's going to totally change their life, and then that's going to be overwhelming. And other people it's going to fall totally flat on, and you're going to be like, you don't even get it. You don't even get me. Yeah. And so I think it's important. You got to run through the cycle. You got to put it out, learn, see how that makes you feel, see what it influences your art, see what you want to do better next time, and then do another project and put it out.
Yes. And then I've learned too that from doing that, you get the feedback from people. So people tell you like, oh, I really like this song, and not that, what other people say is everything, but you also, you can kind of store and be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and I think if a lot of people are telling you that, they're liking a certain thing or a certain vibe, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe I should, kind of steer more this way. So, I think that's been important for me personally, as an artist, and it's allowed me to now, it's like when I put out a song, it's like, I know I can expect kind of like what I'm going to get in terms of the streams, and it kind of helps, my strategy, and I know where to put it to like get those streams and things like that, because I've put out a lot of music and I've gotten the feedback, and I know, at least at this point, what has been received better. And so I kind of just try to lean that way so that, I'm getting the optimal,
even
success.
Building the muscle for that process. I think it's less about specifically what they say and more just that you put something out, they listened to it, and they said something back, right? It makes that all less scary, kind of numbs it down for you, where you're not doing that edit it over and over because what will people say? Yes. And if this is not perfect or the best thing they've ever heard, then am I a good artist? And all that. It just gets that all out of your brain.
Yes, and I get it. It's like you're putting money. Some people, you are making that investment. You've saved up some money to get the song properly mixed and mastered, and I get it. It is scary to throw it out there. You've put this time and energy into it. In a lot of cases, the music may be about something that's vulnerable, for you. It may be about something very personal, and that's scary too. To throw that out And it's also, it can be a hit to the ego as well if people don't receive it a certain way, knowing that you put all this time and energy into it, knowing that it's really personal for you, knowing that it really means something for you. But that's part of the process, and the more you do it, the more you get used to not worrying about who likes it or not. I feel like once you can like shift into like, it doesn't even matter what other people say about it, then you're moving. Then you're like, okay, then I feel like you can focus on, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Control what you can control. I cannot control what people do with the music once I put it out there. I can't, but I can control, submitting it to certain playlists. I could control if I run ads or not. I could control this and that. There's things I can control, and I worry about that, and that's it. Other than that, it's out of my hands.
I love that, and I think too many people think about their music career or the music business as like a totally unique and different thing than the way any other business or investment would work. Like if you're opening up a restaurant, like you're spending tons of money first, and on day one, there's not a line out the door. You hope one or two people come in and you make them a good meal and they tell their friends and then more people come in. No one is going opening up the restaurant and on day one expecting someone to come and give them a big check with all their mony back. So but I think a lot of people when they're making music, they expect, okay, it's like I spent $5,000 making this album. If it doesn't go number one, that was a huge waste of money. And that's not how it works. Yeah.
No.
What would you say your, vision and hope for this podcast, say 1 year from now is?
1 year from now, I don't necessarily know 1 year from now, but it's interesting you asked that because, I was thinking about this recently, and, I was talking about Alex Hormozy earlier, and now this guy, like I said, he is a billionaire basically, and he's still doing a lot of YouTube content, which is free content, really helping all the other, small business owners out there scale their businesses, grow their businesses. And, there are things in it for him, but a lot of what he does is just free content that is just designed to help other people. And I was just thinking about that not too long ago, and I was like, man, that is just like, it's so dope. And I feel like there's not a musician who really does that, who is at that level, who is like
cool
somebody who is, like I said, he's a billionaire. So like, I don't know of the multi-millionaire, multi-platinum artist who is doing the content specifically designed to help other artists. So I would love to be the Alex Hormozy of music, if that makes sense.
That's a good vision.
So that is, and like I said, this just was something I was just thinking about the other day, and that is kind of, at least right now, how I feel. And so, when the hit song comes, I would love to keep doing this. I want people to hold me to this, because I want to keep, doing things like this, doing the podcast, regardless of, whatever's happening, music wise. And, I obviously, as a musician, I would love to, have the, the hit records and all of that. But I think it would be cool to, also keep doing this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think our format has the legs to do it, because even as you ascend to the higher levels, there's new lessons at those levels 100%. For us to teach and share and get other 100%. People who've experienced and to talk about. So 100%. I think we can do it.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right, deal. All right.
I think that's a good place to stop. Dave Marx.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. Where can people find you, man?
You can find me at Dave Marx Music on all platforms. DaveMarx Music.
And you produce and
I produce, engineer, mix, do any audio editing you might need, whether you got a podcast or a song or anything. I do in-studio sessions here in LA. I do remote mixing, producing. Hit me up. I'd love to help you with your next project.
That's what's up.
All right.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Broadway.
All right. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Broadway, the host. If you got something out of the episode, definitely go ahead and hit the like button. Also subscribe and turn on the notifications so you can get notified whenever we drop new episodes. If there was something specific that you learned or found interesting, put that in the comments. Also, if there was something that you thought you were going to learn more about, wanted to hear more about, and you didn't, put that in the comments as well. We can use that to make these episodes better going forward. Thank you again for checking out They're Good at That Shit.